How do you find out your crank size? Usually it's on the opposite side of your pedal. So 175. That means 175 millimetres. Well, Shimano do that anyway. I guess that's not very clear because a lot of people wouldn't know what that means really, you know. It just says 175. The rest of it's telling me the crankset model it is, FCR 3000. And yeah, so that's what it is, 175 millimetres long. I think from the centre of that circle to the centre of that circle, I'm going to measure it. Well, I know the answer already, but yeah, 175 from circle to circle. And now I'm going to talk about the politics of the crankset, or the cranks actually, cranks. And the trend at the moment seems to be everyone's going shorter. Shorter is better. And I agree. So that's why I'm changing from 175 to 170. When I say I agree, I don't really know. It's just my instinct. This is a Holotech 2 crankset, and the problem with these, well, it's not really a problem, but these are two-piece, so if I wanted to change these cranks, I actually need to buy a whole new crankset. There's because it's two-piece, that other one is part of the crank chain rings. So this is a modern problem because it looks like Shimano Qs are all going to be a Holotech 2 at the moment, which is what this is, Holotech 2. The 2 being two-piece, I think. Whereas with the old traditional square tapered type, you could change your cranks just yourselves. You don't need to get a whole new crankset, I think. This is a work in progress. I'm waiting for parts, but so I didn't put this all together again. Alright, I'm speaking with fluent ignorance, alright? Confident ignorance. I've even got a glove on. I couldn't find the other one. For effect, for impact. That's another thing. I think people should be wearing gloves less for comfort. Sometimes it can be too absorbent, but for long distance stuff, you know, I think you should really. And for keeping the sun off your hands and stuff. Here's my notes, alright? I don't care what you think. Crank size, the standard at the moment is 170, 175. What I always find is that when I buy bikes, well, I've not bought very many, but they always seem to be 175 millimetres, and that seemed to be the road bike sort of what you would get with a bog standard road bike. But I always felt a bit too long for me, and I think I'm right. Even road bikes seem to be coming down now, going smaller, so they're going, say, for 170 millimetres. This is the sort of standard sizes. I just read a thing on Bike Radar, so I've researched this for about 5 to 10 minutes, and it was saying that they tried crank sizes from 80 millimetres to 210 millimetres, say, to find out which were the best. And for speed from 0, I think they said 145 millimetres, which is bizarre, you know, that's tiny. What would that be? Round about there? Well, it's not as small as I thought. Round about there. Maybe like a kid's bike or something. Oh, I could be recalling this totally wrong as well. But they said 145, but when you take everything into the thing they recommended, they suggested sort of 170 or something. So it's not just about, you know, starting from 0. But then when you think of the indoor road bike things, they use really big cranksets so that they can get away in that first thing maybe. But it's not really about that, it's about comfort. And comfort, a shorter crank means that you've got, you're using your hip flexor less and your joints. So that's what I'm going for really. So I've ordered a crankset at 170 millimetres. That's all I could get really, because the crankset I'm ordering is very rare now. It's a Sora triple ring, and I could only get 170 really on it. I couldn't find, because I could hardly even find a supplier. I had to order from Germany. Yeah, so the train seems to be smaller, and apparently the aero people, which is what road cyclists are most concerned about now, they're saying that smaller is better because it means you can tuck in your hips better, and you're not because in the old days for the road bikes they used to think longer was better so you could get more leverage, but now they're thinking, well, actually it's probably shorter because you can get more aero, you can get tucked in better, and you're not in as much pain in the joints and stuff. Yeah, because when Bradley Wiggins attempted his world record attempt, I don't know if that was indoors, I think so. He switched from 175.5mm cranks to 170. So, and anyway, crank sets. The square is the traditional type, and for that, that's a 3-piece. You can buy cranks for that on their own. But the newer type, like Holotype 2 and SRAM Dub, are 2-piece, which I'll show you in a minute. And for that, you'll need to buy a whole new crank set if you want to change your crank sizes. Yeah, this is a Holotype 2 with a 2-piece. You take that bit off and then this whole thing comes off on its own. Like that. So that's connected to that, so you can't just buy a crank for that side. You see? Yeah, this is Holotype 2, so that crank arm is connected to that. So if you want to change the crank size, you're going to have to get a new whole crank set. The idea behind this is it's stiffer, you know, so you're transferring more power, which makes sense and all that, you know, but if you get square taper, you can still just change the cranks, I think. The square taper is a traditional type. I guess it's like buying trousers, you know, because, what is it? Oh, that's 175 probably, yeah. Yeah, you know, leg length. So really you should be going by leg length. It's probably something that most of us ignore when we buy a bike. But even now for road cyclists, the road enthusiasts, they're thinking that crank size, they've gone too long. Probably they were thinking longer is better. Now they're starting to think shorter is better, but for most of us, even Shimano, like you probably only really get down to 170. You can get 165 ones now by Shimano, quite commonly, I would say. But I mean, even mountain bike ones are talking about going down even further to 150, but you'll be lucky to find that at the moment. But I'm not even sure you want to, you know, so, because when you buy trousers, you want to know the leg length, you know. I think that Bike Radar thing said that you should be looking at something like 21% of your leg length. Now, I've just made that number up. They did give a percentage. I think they maybe said something like 41% of your tibia or whatever, but I'm just making these numbers up. But you know, you get the idea, don't you? Yeah, because when you've got a longer crank set, you've got, you know, you're rotating more in the leg like that. So it's more discomfort. I think most people that are looking for a bike, they were really looking for gravel bikes, but they didn't realise, because in the old days, when you watch the videos, it's all road cyclist enthusiasts. But really, I think the question is, do you want to cycle? Do you want to pedal downhill? And if the answer is no, then you're looking for comfort rather than road cycling enthusiasm, you know. So really we're all buying these bikes, if we buy a road bike type, we're buying the ones, you know, that are meant to win the Tour de France and stuff like that, you know. They're not about comfort. I think the most important thing is comfort, really. Comfort, and then for me, lightness. But lightness is not a big importance, comfort's the most important thing. So that's going more towards gravel bikes nowadays. When I started looking at these bikes, say 20 years ago, they didn't even have a name, you know. I thought hybrid bike they would be called or something, or a courier bike, you know. For me it was a road bike with straight handlebars. I'm not sure about straight handlebars now. I would maybe go to the other, because the race bike handlebars, they have three handle positions basically now. In the old days they really had just two, but now they've got three, because they've got that one over their levers, which is probably they use the most now, you know, and that's them just cruising. And that might be even better than a straight bar, you know. I don't know, but yeah. So So for cranks, everyone's going shortest. Even amongst the Tour de France guys, probably. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, because when they do aero stuff now, or when they do, apart from the road biking indoors, they still use big gears to get away that first few metres, I think, even, probably. And they're not doing that long. Sometimes they are, actually, but yeah, for people trying to beat the world record or whatever, for long distance or whatever, I think they're using shorter cranks now, just for aero. But for us ordinary punters, it's because you're not using your hip flexors and joints as much, rotationally, for that big rotation like that. Because the old saying used to be that for mountain bikes, they wanted big cranks to get up really steep hills, so you had the leverage. But I'm not even sure that's correct, really, either. Really you want it as easy as possible, and that's probably shorter. One person was saying in that bike raider thing that the size of the crank is really just like having an easier gear, as you've only got one gear. I don't know what I'm talking about here now, because I disagree with them, but yeah, that was their ideas. But now, if you get loads of gears, that doesn't matter, because now you can use a shorter gear and just use a bigger gear at the back or whatever. I don't agree with what that person said anyway. They were saying other things like, if you want to jump in a box, do you want to jump in small boxes or a big box? I agree with that analogy, Like using a long crank is like jumping on a big box continually. Well, something like that. I think that's what they said. Alright guys, I've spoke with confident ignorance on this subject. 175 millimetres. So that could be better, Shimano. You should have put the millimetre thing in it. Or maybe not. Or maybe they said they'll just put it around there or something. This is telling me that this crank will fit the FC front chainring Road 3000 crankset, which is what this is. But I've ordered the 3030, which has got triple rings. So this crankset would fit. But I had to order the whole lot because it's a Holotech 2, and that other crank's connected to the chainring. I think we're all going to have that problem. Well, a lot of us are going to have that problem now, because Shimano Q's is replacing a lot of the cheaper Shimano road and mountain bike group sets, of which there are a lot. I think there's they're replacing Alivio, Isera, and a few others in the mountain bike range, and in the road bike range they're replacing Sora, Claris, another one, Tiagra even, I think maybe. They're replacing them all with Shimano Q's, and so far it looks like all the cranksets are Holotech 2, which this is, which means you won't be able to buy cranks separately. Well, you can buy one for this size, but there doesn't seem much point if you're buying one different for one side and one for the other. Basically, probably small people or people with shorter legs should be buying smaller size cranksets, Can I say something like maybe the ladies should be buying 165 millimetres? Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Discriminatory, isn't it? But I would guess, just shorter leg people should be. I'm saying 165 millimetres, but I don't actually know, because maybe they should be buying 170. I mean, Shimano, their big ranges were 175 to 170, but when I've been looking recently, there's been 165 available. I think they do 165.7 too, as well. Well, I shouldn't have said 2, but yeah, you get the idea, don't you? The shorter leg GR, the smaller crank size you should be getting. Usually when you buy a bike, the frame will match that to reflect that. But what I find anyway is any time I buy a bike, which is not very often, they usually get 175 millimetres on it. But I think that's becoming old fashioned now. Probably if I bought this bike now, if it was new, it would probably be fitted with 170 millimetres, I'm guessing. Alright guys, another great video in the bag. It's time to try and get a thumbnail. So that article was saying Aero, because of Aero, they're going for shorter cranks now amongst the road bike community enthusiasts, the ones who pedal downhill. Don't know if that's, but I think for all of us, it'll be the same because you're wanting comfort, you know. I mean, I don't know, I like to go very long distances, but I do short distances as well, but I like long distances. So what would you call me, a wanderer? I wanted a road bike type, but I wanted a comfort. And back even 10 years ago that was quite hard. But now even the road cyclists are going for, you know, they used to go for 23mm tyre width, which is very thin and very high pressure and very discomfort. I mean, you were feeling every bump. Whereas now they're going for, like, the Tour de France guys are going for 28mm and a much lower pressure. And now they're even going for 32mm, the road, your local road cycle community enthusiasts, the ones who pedal downhill. And now I think they're even making road bike frames that can fit 40mm, you know, width. This is 32, I do believe. Yeah, comfort is what most of us should be going for. Comfort with a bit of speed. And for me, that I would go for lightness rather than aero, because aero, you know, most of us, it's still lightness for going uphill. And I think most of us that are wanderers, we want really to get up hills easy. That's the main thing, rather than speed on the flat or whatever. You know, I want both, but I want comfort first and lightness second, whereas downhill pedalers, the road bike enthusiasts, would be going for aero first and then the, well, comfort I suppose. Probably lightness. Aero, lightness, comfort. What I don't understand about this aero thing is that I find out that aero's fastest overall, but we're talking about seconds, I think, a lot of the time. But anyway, and even then it's when you're over 15 miles an hour, but that can include wind against you or whatever. But why didn't they find this out decades ago? I mean, they've had their wind tunnels for decades, you know, 30 years. I mean, even 10 years ago, they were all bothered about lightness. That's what it was all about. It still is for uphill enthusiasts. You know, if you look at the uphill competitions, they're doing things like taking pieces of their bike off, maybe even half a saddle and stuff like that, so that they can get even a few grams off. You know, that's the uphill cycle enthusiast. Most of us were wanting comfort. I mean, I would say you would even want a suspension seat post, at least, possibly even at the front. I don't know. You know, long distance wanderers should be going for comfort. With a road bike sort of frame, I would say, rather than a mountain bike. As I say, now they've got gravel bikes, which are basically comfort road bikes, I would say. So, because I do off-road on this, or trails, but yeah, probably it is better when you've got a wider tyre and that. But yeah, comfort. Then for me, lightness, then aero. Whereas a road bike enthusiast would be aero for speed. Then I'm not sure. Lightness probably, and comfort maybe, I don't know. Hey guys, if that didn't make any sense, it's an ASMR video, comforting ASMR video. These gloves are really nice, but I'm not sure. I think when I actually used them, they were a bit too absorbent for long distance, and that became a bit of a nuisance actually. But the good things about these is it protects your hands as well, you know, from calluses or whatever. I would always wear gloves. The question is getting the most comfiest ones. Alright guys, it's all over. Goodbye.